Welcome to Abbey Research Reads. My name is Dr. Kristen, and I am one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. And today I'm coming to you with a nonfiction book review of the book Drinking in America by Susan Cheever, Our Secret History. The way that this, essentially what Susan does is go from the Mayflower and the Pilgrims all the way through now and talk about America's relationship with alcohol. I picked this up at the Prohibition Museum in Savannah. And I was expecting kind of a little bit more of a lot about, I don't know, like a little bit more of a detailed history. This was a little bit more like people focused than I particularly wanted. I wanted a more sociological, like here's everything. This was a really kind of chatty. It was a quick read, somewhat because I skimmed a lot, to be honest. Like there's a whole chapter about specific Union soldiers. I didn't really care. I was looking for more patterns than for individuals, but we did learn about a few patterns. So first of all, drinking has been part of America forever, and there's always been two camps. The way that she articulates it here is that drinking was either a gift from God, and this is what the Pilgrims believed, or drunkenness was a curse from the devil, which is what the Puritans believed. Those are two different groups of people. And then right around kind of, Dr. Benjamin Rush was the doctor of the Continental Congress, and he said he understood that the powerlessness of alcoholic and the oversimplification that many people brought to bear on the problem of liquor. Benjamin Rush was the first person to understand that alcoholism was a disease. And that was in, again, like the 1700s. And so we've understood things, there's some things to remember. First of all, like water was completely undrinkable for a really long time. So beer was kind of it. And we have never quite as Americans or as American culture understood with what to do with excessive drinking, or understood that there's a balance between excessive drinking and drinking. And we've not really kind of ever known what to do. So in the 1820s, for instance, I learned that children drank all the time and children were showing up to school drunk. Until the Industrial Revolution, just like a lot of companies in the 80s had smoke breaks, companies had drink breaks. The Industrial Revolution is when we really started to see the problems of showing up drunk on the job, because you weren't just like farming a field anymore, you were working with a machine that could kill you. And so that's kind of when the temperance movement started. And again, if you don't know, the temperance movement also started as a women's rights movement, because at the time, women didn't drink at all. They weren't allowed in saloons. They didn't drink in public. Of course they drank at home. Of course they drank. But under the public perception was that women didn't drink. And so temperance started as a women's rights movement to essentially get paychecks back from their husband. If their husbands weren't drinking, they would bring the paychecks home to then do this. Out of that, they realized that the temperance movements of the mid 1800s realized that it wasn't going to happen unless women had the vote. So then it turned into suffrage movements, all of which was entirely about dealing with a lot of white middle class men. So there's that. Prohibition, again, was like this pendulum swing of trying to do something that nobody really wanted except for a couple really powerful people that preyed upon fear. And the history of America is pendulum swings. We're terrible at moderation. Some of it is because fundamentally as a country, we're still a teenager and we don't know what we're doing. But also just because of our culture of absolute rabid individualism means that we pendulum swing a lot. And prohibition is a great example of that. Susan makes some really fascinating points throughout this. Obviously, I've got a couple I'd love to share with you guys here. So one is that I'd love to just unpack a little bit more. Allow me to find this. First of all, did we all know that Alexander Hamilton didn't drink? I didn't know that, and I thought I knew everything about Hamilton. So that was fascinating. Here we go. Oh, and a quick reminder that colonial life revolved entirely around the tavern. Like that was big. So this is in the 18th century. I just want to bring this up really briefly. So 1700s is the independence movement is starting. By the 18th century, the colonists were less focused on God and more focused on profits. Gone was their piety as well as their distaste for local fish. Gone was their high-minded religiosity. They were no longer men and women wedded to the freedom of belief. They were now a community devoted to trade, eating, and drinking. And so this was like capitalism has been part of our national heritage as well for the entirety of our existence in a lot of ways. We weren't there because, you know, we had triumphed over whatever God had brought us. Of course, if you watch our other coverage, you'll know that we didn't exactly get rid of the theological puritanical baggage, and we still have it today, and it's the basis of culture. So we've always had this tension too between having fun and being good, quote unquote, and a weird belief that you can't do both of those things. She traces it pretty well. I don't know if I'd give this a recommendation, to be completely honest. Like, it's fine. It's fine. If you're interested, like I found I knew a lot of what she said, especially for like a book I purchased. It's a great library read. I don't think I would have been as frustrated with it if I hadn't bought it. Because I was like, I know a lot of this, or like, this is really common sense, or this is in a million other sources. If you've never encountered anything about the history of alcohol in America, this might be really good. I'm not sure. I didn't come into it with that lens. But it's a good library book. It's a great library book. Also, evidently, her family's really famous, which I didn't realize, and she refers to them a lot, which was a little bit off-putting. Like, I should know who they are, and I don't know who they are. So that wasn't my favorite. Like, she just referred her grandfather a lot, and her father, and like, well, of course, and then this Cheever. I was like, I don't know who you are. I don't care. So that was not my absolute favorite. But there's, of course, a lot of praise for it, again, because she's famous. As an empathy read, it gives you some great context. I think there's probably, again, you know, grab it from your library, but there's some other resources out there that are maybe a little bit quicker to help you understand the history of drinking in America, and kind of getting the grips and the grasp of what this thing is and always has been to us. I'm sure there's some great YouTube stuff out there. So like middling rec from me. If you read it, let me know. If you've got different opinions, I'd love to know. Give it a comment in the show notes. Also, in the downstairs, you will find a link to our free guide on building your empathy. This book wasn't great, but lots of other books are, and we've got some other tips for building your empathy, so you can grab your free guide to doing that in the downstairs. You'll also find, in the downstairs or on our main page, a link to our sister channel, our main YouTube channel, Abbey Research, where we have lots of conversations all the time about how to build your empathy, how to intentionally and consistently decide to choose understanding over assuming, both of yourself and other people. So how do we ask more questions, make less assumptions, seek understanding, engage our curiosity? That's what we're all about here at Abbey Research. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, etc., and I will see you next time on the next Abbey Research Reads.